My mom left my 6-year-old son a Universal Studio. My phone rang, his name flashed. Mom, I'm alone. My heart pounded. Where? Universal Studio entrance. Grandma left me. I called my mom. She laughed. Relax. I teased just a few hours. My sister snickered. My kids would never be left behind. But soon, they were the ones desperate to find me. The sharp sound of Emily Johnson's fingers striking the keyboard broke the silence of the small apartment. 2 hours until the deadline. Client revision requests always came at the very last minute. Beside her, her son Jacob was deeply focused on a dinosaur puzzle. The careful way his thin fingers matched the pieces was like looking into a mirror of herself. Mom, look! I finished the T-Rex's head. Emily took her eyes off the screen and gazed at her son's face, full of accomplishment. Jacob's brown eyes were just like hers. That's wonderful. Just a bit more and it'll be complete. She smiled, momentarily forgetting the tension of her work. Just then, her smartphone rang. The screen displayed Mom. Emily sighed and pressed the answer button. Are you ready for tomorrow? Make sure you put sunscreen on Jacob. If he gets burned like last time, we'll have to take him to the dermatologist again. Carol's voice had that familiar bossy tone mixed in. Of course I'm ready. I've packed almost everything, Emily answered with a slight frown. Have you talked to Vanessa? She's preparing matching t-shirts for Ava and Lucas. They'll look good in photos. Emily closed her eyes. Not yet. I'll contact her today. Do that. Those children should become closer as cousins. Especially Jacob, I think it would do him good to spend time with more active children. Emily didn't miss the criticism hidden behind those words. Jacob was introverted, preferring to spend time alone or in small groups rather than large ones. To Carol, this seemed like a problem that needed fixing. Jacob has his own pace, Mom, she answered in a gentle but firm voice. Anyway, we're meeting at the hotel lobby at 8 a.m. tomorrow, right? That's right. Don't be late, Carol added before hanging up. Emily put down her phone and looked at Jacob. He was pretending not to have heard the conversation, but she could see the slight tension in his small shoulders. Was Grandma worried about me again? He asked quietly. Emily was sometimes surprised by her son's perceptiveness. Grandma just makes it her job to worry about everyone, she explained gently. But don't worry. Tomorrow is going to be a fun day. She really hoped so. The family trip to Universal Studios had been planned months ago as a birthday present for Lucas. And at a bad time for Emily, an urgent conference call request had come in from an important client. Conducting business talk in the middle of Universal Studios was unavoidable. Emily's smartphone rang again. This time, it was a message from her sister. I'll stop by at 6. Lucas wants to see Jacob. Also, let's discuss tomorrow's schedule. Emily replied, Okay, but I have an important conference call at 2 p.m. tomorrow. It might take about 30 minutes. A reply came immediately. Don't worry. Mom and I will look after Jacob. You focus on your work. Emily felt grateful, but anxious. Carol and Vanessa's idea of looking after usually included criticism of her parenting methods. Jacob should be more sociable. He should do more physical activities. You're spoiling him too much. Ever since Emily became a single mother, their advice had been constant. She took a small cell phone from the drawer and checked that it was charged. This was Jacob's emergency phone. Jay, we'll take this with us tomorrow. If anything happens, you can call Mom right away. Jacob nodded with a tense face. Will I be with Grandma and Aunt Vanessa? Just for a little while. Mom will be back quickly. Emily hugged him. Besides, Ava and Lucas will be there too. Lucas always takes my toys, Jacob said in a quiet voice. Emily couldn't hide her wry smile. Vanessa prided herself on raising her children perfectly, but from her perspective, her nephew Lucas was simply spoiled. However, for the sake of family peace, she kept this to herself. The doorbell rang, and Emily checked the clock. It was exactly 6. Vanessa's punctuality was sometimes convenient. When she opened the door, Vanessa stood there with a perfect blonde ponytail and designer activewear. Behind her, Ava and Lucas lined up wearing matching denim jackets. Are you ready? Vanessa's voice rang out brightly. I can't wait for tomorrow. Emily opened the door wide to welcome her family. With mixed anxiety and anticipation for tomorrow, she prayed silently, Please, let everything go well. The entrance to Universal Studios in the morning was crowded with weekend visitors. The sun was rising high, and the excited voices and laughter of children filled the air. Emily held Jacob's small hand firmly as she followed Carol and Vanessa's families. "Everyone, let's take a commemorative photo here," Vanessa announced loudly, taking out her smartphone. "Ava, Lucas, come here. Jacob, too." As the three children lined up in front of the camera, Jacob looked up at Emily with a slightly nervous expression. She smiled encouragingly and gently pushed his shoulders. "Smile." After taking a series of photos, Vanessa checked the screen and nodded with satisfaction. "Perfect. I can make a great Instagram post." Emily looked at her watch. 10 a.m. 4 hours until the conference call. "Shall we head to the first attraction?" Carol unfolded the map and began directing the family. "Let's go to the popular attractions first. The wait times get longer in the afternoon." The group proceeded through the theme park and arrived at the first attraction. The wait time displayed was 45 minutes, but the children's excitement didn't wane. Jacob in particular had been looking forward to this attraction featuring his favorite anime characters for months. "Look, Mom." He pointed to pictures of characters drawn on the wall while standing in line. "They look so real." Emily felt warm inside seeing her son's joy. Usually quiet and introverted, Jacob's eyes were shining with pure excitement in this moment. After going on 2 attractions, the group entered lunchtime. While sitting at a restaurant in the park and placing their orders, Emily's smartphone vibrated. She checked the screen and frowned. "I got an email from the client. The conference call has been moved up to 1. She looked at her watch. "It's already 12:30. "Don't worry," Carol waved her hand. "We'll take care of Jacob. You focus on your work." "That's right," Vanessa agreed. "We were planning to go to Splash Mountain next anyway. Jacob, you'll have fun with Ava and Lucas." Emily looked anxiously at Jacob. Her son seemed concerned about her absence. "Are you okay?" she asked Jacob gently. "It'll just be for a little while. I'll be back soon." Jacob nodded slowly. "Come back quickly." Emily checked his pocket to make sure the emergency phone was there. "With this, you can contact me anytime." Carol laughed lightly. "Don't worry so much. We'll be watching him carefully." Emily took a deep breath. "All right. I don't think it will take more than an hour. Let's decide where to meet." "Let's meet at the exit of Splash Mountain," Vanessa suggested. "We'll probably still be in line or just finishing the ride." Emily gave Jacob a final kiss and left the restaurant in search of a quiet place. Finding a spot with less noise, she opened her laptop and began preparing for the conference call. The meeting progressed as expected, and the client seemed satisfied with her design proposal. Emily focused, explained, and answered questions about the next steps. Looking at the clock, it was already 1:45. "That concludes my explanation," she wrapped up politely. "Do you have any questions?" There were a few minutes of questions from the client, which she answered courteously. When the meeting ended, the clock showed 2. Emily quickly closed her laptop and checked her smartphone. No notifications. Surely her family was at Splash Mountain as promised? As she began walking toward the attraction, her phone vibrated in her pocket. From an unknown number, she realized with a jump in her heart that it was Jacob's emergency phone. "Jacob?" she answered, anxiety bleeding into her voice. "Mom." A small voice trembled. "I'm alone." Emily stopped, feeling as if the world had frozen despite the noise around her. "Where?" she gasped. "At the entrance to Universal Studios." Jacob's voice was on the verge of tears. "Grandma left me." Alarms rang in Emily's head. "Don't move, stay there. I'm coming right now." She hurried through the crowds toward the park entrance. At the same time she called Carol. "Mom, where's Jacob?" she demanded in a voice mixed with anger and fear. "Oh, Emily." Carol's voice was far too calm. "Jacob is enjoying Splash Mountain with Ava and Lucas." "No," Emily shouted. "He just called me. He's all alone at the park entrance." After a moment of silence, Carol answered in a confused voice. "That can't be. I thought he was with Vanessa. Jacob wasn't with you?" Emily's voice trembled. "He didn't want to go on the attraction, so I left him with Vanessa." Carol's words trailed off. "She wasn't with him either. Jacob is alone at the entrance." Emily felt uncontrollable anger. How could this happen? "Don't make such a big deal." Carol said, mixing in a laugh. He'll be fine for a few hours. We'll find him soon. Emily hung up in disbelief and called Vanessa next. Emmy, I'm busy now. Lucas needs to go to the bathroom. Where is Jacob right now? Emily interrupted. Isn't he with Mom? Vanessa answered lightly. No. He's alone at the park in trance. What? Vanessa was confused for a moment but quickly snorted. Well, my kids would never be left behind. I never take my eyes off them. Emily hung up and ran full speed toward the entrance. Pushing through the crowds, her heart was beating so fast, it felt like it would jump out of her chest. When she finally saw the entrance gates, she spotted a small figure, Jacob sitting on a bench, hugging his knees and crying. Jacob! She cried out, rushing to her son. Jacob looked up, and seeing his mother, immediately stood up and jumped into her arms. Mom! He clung to her, sobbing. Emily held him tightly, feeling tears stream down her cheeks. It's okay, Mom is here now, she whispered. I won't leave you alone again. Just then she noticed a man in uniform approaching. I'm Michael Foster, the security manager, the man introduced himself, extending his hand to Emily. His manner was professional, yet warm. One of our staff noticed your child crying and contacted me. Emily shook Michael's hand with a trembling hand, while still embracing Jacob. I'm Emily. I'm so sorry. My mother and sister. She stumbled over her words. The more she tried to explain, the more ridiculous the situation seemed. Michael nodded understandingly. Let's move to a place where you can calm down. He took out a small radio and instructed, please prepare a VIP room. They were guided to a quiet room behind the scenes of the park. The room had comfortable sofas, cold drinks, and toys appropriate for Jacob's age. Would you like some water? Emily asked her son. Jacob nodded slightly and took a sip of water. His eyes were red and swollen, but he had stopped crying. Michael sat down on the sofa and gently asked, Jacob, can you tell us what happened? Jacob looked at Emily, and when she nodded encouragingly, he began speaking in a small voice. I was with Grandma, but I didn't want to ride the big roller coaster. I was scared. And then? Michael gently prompted. Grandma said, then wait here. But Aunt Vanessa, Ava, and Lucas all went with her. He faltered. I waited, but no one came back. Emily felt her chest tighten. How long did you wait? I don't know. A long time. Jacob's voice grew smaller. Lots of people walked by. I got scared. So, I went to the entrance. Because I'd seen it before. Michael nodded with an understanding expression. That was a very smart decision, Jacob. When you're lost in a crowded place, going to a prominent place, or somewhere you've been before, is the right thing to do. Emily gently stroked Jacob's head while explaining the situation to Michael. She told him about her work conference call, leaving her son with Carol and Vanessa, and receiving the frightening phone call. My mother said, don't make such a big deal, and my sister. She tried to contain her anger. She said, my kids would never be left behind. Michael's expression hardened. A child being alone in an amusement park is a very serious situation, especially for a child of Jacob's age. I know, Emily said apologetically. I should have been more careful. No, Miss Johnson. You were responsible and gave your child an emergency phone. That's what ensured Jacob's safety today, Michael said reassuringly. The problem lies with your family members who neglected to supervise Jacob. Emily took a deep breath. Finally, she felt she could stop blaming herself. Now, Michael stood up and smiled. I'd like to make up for this unpleasant experience with something special. Jacob looked up with curiosity. Let me treat you as VIPs today, Michael suggested. How about a backstage tour, priority boarding on attractions, and special character greetings? Jacob's eyes lit up. Really? Emily was filled with gratitude. That's very kind of you. But special treatment isn't necessary. No, we take pride in making our guests' experiences the best they can be. Michael smiled. Especially for guests who have experienced situations like today's. About an hour later, Emily and Jacob were walking through the park's backstage with Michael as their guide. Jacob, with a special VIP badge on his chest, looked around excitedly. This is an area regular guests can't see, Michael explained. It's behind the scenes of the movies and attractions. They visited the character costume room and took photos with Jacob's favorite characters, Next, they enjoyed attractions through priority lanes that would normally require hours of waiting. Jacob's smile had returned, and he was once again an excited 6-year-old boy. Emily felt warm seeing her son's transformation, and took out her smartphone to capture their special time in photos. "Mom, look!" Jacob pointed to an attractions control room. Michael was explaining the control panel to him. "Amazing." Emily smiled and took a photo to capture the moment. Casually, she opened Instagram and scrolled through the recent photos. Then, impulsively, she began to post. She uploaded a photo of Jacob's beaming smile and VIP badge with the caption, "A tragedy of my son being left behind turned into a special memory." And she added a short explanation. "Today, my 6-year-old son was left alone at Universal Studios. The fear when he called me, crying, after being abandoned by family, is indescribable. However, thanks to this park's wonderful staff, especially security manager Michael Foster, the tragedy transformed into a magical experience. Sometimes, the worst situations become the best memories." She pressed the post button and returned the phone to her pocket. Over the next few hours, they enjoyed the park. Michael occasionally joined them, continuing to provide special experiences. Jacob forgot his fatigue and ran excitedly from attraction to attraction. Around 4 p.m., Emily's smartphone began to vibrate continuously. Notifications were pouring in. Her Instagram post was getting an unexpected response. Messages of concern from friends, support from strangers, and empathy from parents who had similar experiences were flooding in. But what surprised her most was that the post had been shared hundreds of times and was beginning to be picked up by local news sites. "What's wrong?" Michael asked, noticing the change in her expression. "My post seems to be spreading quite a bit," Emily answered in confusion. "That wasn't my intention." Michael nodded understandingly. Sometimes people relate to real experiences, especially when there's a good ending. As Emily was checking more notifications, a message arrived from Vanessa. "I saw your post. Delete it right now. Everyone is condemning us in the comments. Friends contacted me saying we abandoned a child. How could you do this?" Emily took a deep breath, and for the first time she felt the strength to assert her position. "Where do you want to go next?" she asked her son with a smile. Jacob excitedly pointed to the next attraction. She ignored Vanessa's message and switched her smartphone to silent mode. Now was the time to enjoy moments with her son. She felt that Carol and Vanessa should take responsibility for their actions. Carol sat on a bench in the park, scrolling through her smartphone screen with trembling fingers. Social media feeds were overflowing with sympathetic comments on Emily's post. However, more than those comments, critical words directed at her jumped out at her. Next to her, Vanessa was nervously biting her nails while checking her own smartphone. "Even my PTA friends are talking about this." Vanessa's voice was filled with despair. "I can't show my face tomorrow." Carol looked up with tears in her eyes and said, "Try calling Emily again. Surely she'll listen." Vanessa had already called 3 times, but all were forwarded to Emily's voicemail. Vanessa sighed and hung up. "It's no use, Mom. She's ignoring us." "How could?" Carol held her head. "It was just 30 minutes. Just while we were riding Splash Mountain. He was scared, so I just thought he could wait." Vanessa said quietly, "We didn't confirm who was watching Jacob. Mom thought I was watching him, and I thought Mom was watching him. This is both our responsibility." Carol was unusually at a loss for words. She had always believed she was right, but this time there was no room for excuses. "We need to find Emily." She stood up. "I'll apologize directly." The two began walking through the park. Finding Emily and Jacob in the crowded masses was not easy. They looked at the map and moved from attraction to attraction. Vanessa suddenly stopped and pointed. "The VIP entrance to the Minion attraction?" Indeed, Emily and Jacob were entering through a special entrance with Universal Studios staff. Jacob was smiling, wearing a shining VIP badge on his chest. "Let's go." Carol hurriedly began walking in their direction. However, before they could approach, the attraction entrance closed. The two headed to the regular entrance and lined up, but the wait time display showed 40 minutes. "I can't wait this long." Vanessa was irritated. "Besides, I need to find Ava and Lucas." Carol turned around in surprise. "What do you mean? Where are they?" Vanessa's face turned red. "Well, while we were in line for the Speed Racer attraction, they said they wanted ice cream, so I gave them money and said, come right back. Vanessa, Carol exclaimed. You left the children too. I didn't abandon them. Vanessa became defensive. They're 8 and 5. The ice cream stand was right there, and I was going to come back right away. Carol sighed. What time is it now? 4:30. It's been over an hour. The two exchanged glances, and the same terrible thought occurred to them. Immediately, they began running toward the ice cream stand. When they arrived, there was no sign of Ava or Lucas. Vanessa looked around, panic spreading across her face. Ava, Lucas, she began to shout. The stand's clerk noticed the two and asked, Can I help you? Have you seen my children? An 8-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy. Vanessa's voice was shaking. The clerk nodded, as if remembering. Yes, they were here about an hour ago. They bought ice cream and waited for a while. But when no one came to get them, a staff member took them to the Lost Children's Center, I think. Lost Children's Center? Carol and Vanessa exclaimed simultaneously. It's in the center of the park. The clerk pointed to the map. Your children should be there. The two hurried to the Lost Children's Center. Along the way, Vanessa was acutely aware of the severity of her actions. She had always played the perfect mother, but today she had committed the same mistake. When they arrived at the Lost Children's Center, they explained the situation to the woman at the counter. The woman checked the computer and nodded. Yes, Ava and Lucas Perry, they're here. She pointed to an inner room. But please wait. The security manager wants to discuss the situation. Security manager? Vanessa was confused. A few minutes later, Michael Foster appeared. He gave Carol and Vanessa a stern look. Ms. Perry, Miss Williams, I'm Michael Foster, the security manager of this park. He introduced himself. Today, we've had 2 serious incidents reported from your family. Vanessa stumbled over her words. Please let me see my children. Of course, they are safe, Michael answered in a calm voice. However, leaving children alone in a theme park is a very dangerous act, especially in the case of young children like Lucas. Carol opened her mouth but quickly closed it. She remembered her own words from a few hours ago. Don't make such a big deal. We are truly sorry, she said in a small voice. Michael nodded. The children are spending time with staff in the play area. Before you go to see them, please come this way. He led the two to a monitor on the side. The screen showed Emily and Jacob enjoying a backstage tour. Jacob's face was overflowing with pure joy, and Emily was watching him lovingly. We're providing Ms. Johnson and Jacob with a special VIP experience, Michael explained. We want them to create good memories after experiencing unnecessary trauma today. Carol and Vanessa silently stared at the screen. There was an image of Emily and Jacob they had never seen before, a mother and child completely happy in their own world. Are they looking for us? Vanessa asked in a small voice. Michael smiled gently. No. They are enjoying this special time now, Carol said with tears in her eyes. Emily is a wonderful mother. I underestimated her. Vanessa nodded too. Her image of being a perfect mother had completely crumbled today. Shall we go see your children now? Michael urged the two. When they entered the play area, Ava and Lucas came running. Vanessa knelt and hugged them tightly. I'm sorry. Mommy was wrong, she said tearfully. Mom, where did you go? I was scared, Lucas said in a small voice. Ava looked at her mother from a slight distance. The park lady taught us that if we get lost, we should look for an adult or talk to someone in uniform. What happened to Jacob? Vanessa couldn't find words to answer her daughter's question. Carol intervened, explaining, Jacob is with his mom. We'll go see them later. Michael approached Carol and Vanessa and quietly said, Emily and Jacob will be waiting at the park exit at 6. If you want to meet them, you should go there. The two expressed their gratitude and left the play area with the children. Mom, what should we do? Vanessa asked. Carol took a deep breath. We'll meet Emily and apologize sincerely. That's the only thing we can do, Vanessa nodded. She noticed for the first time today that her mother seemed so weak, and she had to admit that she herself was just as weak. The two held the children's hands and began walking toward the park exit. So when I put gummy bears on the pizza, Lucas frowned and said, Yuck. Vanessa concluded her story with a laugh. Everyone around the table laughed. Emily's apartment dining table had become the place for weekly Sunday family gatherings since the incident at Universal Studios 3 months ago. "Mom, can you tell me about that day?" Jacob asked Emily. "How did you meet Michael?" Emily gently stroked her son's hair. "Because you bravely called me. That day, Michael became everyone's hero." Carol smiled quietly while holding her coffee cup. Since she began counseling to repair her relationship with her grandson, she had gradually changed. There were no longer critical words. Instead, support and affection characterized her attitude. "Since then, Jacob has enjoyed going to the museum with me," Carol said gently. "Last week, we saw a dinosaur exhibit. It was so much fun." Jacob's eyes sparkled. Grandma memorized all the dinosaur names. Emily was grateful for the new relationship with her mother. Carol no longer criticized her parenting. Instead, she had come to recognize and respect her strength. Vanessa had also changed significantly. Shedding the mask of the perfect mother, she had become more honest and humble. "Want to go to the PTA meeting together next week?" Vanessa asked Emily. "I'd like you to see my presentation on learning from parenting failures." Emily nodded happily. "I'd love to." After the meal, as the children began playing games in the living room, the doorbell rang. When Emily opened it, Michael Foster stood there with a bouquet of flowers. "Sorry I'm late," he smiled. Work ran long. Since that day, Michael had become part of Emily's life. What started as just friendship had gradually deepened, and now they were dating several times a week. "Mom, Michael is here." Jacob came running and jumped into Michael's arms. He genuinely adored his hero. "Hey, champion." Michael greeted Jacob with a high five. Emily felt her heart warm at this sight. She never imagined that the tragic event of that day would bring so many blessings. Family bonds had been repaired and grown even stronger. A year ago, she was a single mother, constantly criticized by her mother and sister. Now she was part of a family that respected and supported each other. "Now, it's dessert time," she announced, bringing a chocolate cake from the kitchen. "Let's toast to new beginnings." Glasses were raised, and the sound of them touching resonated in the room. Sometimes, the most unexpected events bring about the most needed changes. Emily had learned that. And her family had etched the same lesson in their hearts.
After listening to today's story, perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind, or maybe it has brought back some old memories. Every day on Reddit, new experiences and moments create fresh stories, and they connect all of us. Everyone has their own unique journey in life, and we all try to understand the world in our own way. These kinds of moments remind us that we are all human, sometimes happy, sometimes sad, and always learning something new. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it with your friends. Your thoughts and feedback are always valuable to us, as they motivate us to create even better content. Every story has its own unique angle, and our goal is to understand everyone's perspective and make our content diverse and relatable. Stories like these help us realize that life's journey is different for everyone, and by hearing other stories, we learn something new. You can also share your own stories with us. Your experiences are valuable to us as well, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave your feedback. We aim to create content that brightens your mind and gives you new ideas every time. If you've already seen this video before, your feedback is still important. With every piece of feedback, we can improve our content and bring a new perspective to our viewers. Today, what we saw was just a small part of the many stories shared on Reddit and across the world. It's a reminder of how we all try to understand life by sharing our experiences with each other. This video was only an example of how we try to connect with others through storytelling, learning about different sides of life. We hope to continue sharing such stories that help us all learn and grow together. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon. If you haven't already, please like and follow for more amazing content. Your support keeps us going, and we will strive to bring you more thought-provoking and heartwarming stories. Until next time, take care and stay curious. *.